Alright, now that you understand the basics of the two types of animations in Photoshop, we're going to go ahead and start creating some really cool projects. So the first one we're going to create is we're going to create a play button that's going to have some lights that will rotate around it, as well as having the play button itself glowing and fading in and out. So it's going to be pretty cool. Let's go ahead and jump right in and get started. So the first thing I want to do is I want to fill in our background color with the color black. So I'm going to select my color. I'm going to drag it down to black. Then using my fill tool, I can go ahead and fill that background in. Next, I want to create a circular shape on my document. So I'm going to come over to my shape tool, and on the circle tool, I'm going to click in my document. And that's going to bring up a window that's going to allow me to put in the exact dimensions of my circle. Now my document is 300 pixels by 300 pixels, so I want it to be just a little bit smaller than that. So I'm going to go 290 pixels by 290 pixels. Make sure you have from center checked. Next, what we want to do is we want to add a fill on our circle. So coming over here to our panel, we're going to click this one that is white with a yellow slash through it. And we want to come over to our gradients. So it's this one right here. We'll click that. And then if we come down here, we can change the color of our gradient. So starting with our black, let's double click this little tab at the bottom. And we want to drag that up so it's a little bit lighter than black. About there should be good. Hit OK. And then let's do the same for our white. So we're going to double click our white. And we want it to be just a little bit lighter than our other color. And you can see right down here the difference between the two colors. So maybe just a little bit lighter. Hit OK. Now my darker color isn't looking dark enough for me, so I'm going to go ahead and darken that just a little bit more. So I'll bring that down. Great. Next, we want to recreate the same exact shape, but black. And we want this to be behind the shape. That way, when we cut out shapes in this one, we have a background behind it. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this layer, and then we want to drag this layer underneath our first layer. Then let's turn off this top layer so we can see our bottom layer. And at this point, they look exactly the same, so it almost looks like you didn't even turn the layer off. What we need to do is we need to change our gradient to a solid black color. So while you're still on the shape tool, we need to come up to our fill, and we want to change that to a solid color. Now mine's already set to black. If yours isn't, you can go ahead and hit this color picker icon and drag it down to your blacks, then hit OK, and that'll set the color of your shape. Perfect. Now next, what we want to do is we want to turn our top layer back on, and then we're going to select both of our layers by holding down Shift and clicking the top one. Then using our grab and move tool, we can move both of those layers and center them, like so. Now next, what we want to do is we want to create a ring that we can cut out of this shape. So we're going to come to our shape tool, and we're going to hold down on it. That way we get all of our options, and we want to come down here to custom shape. Now up here where it says shape, there's a drop down menu, and you can get all these different shapes. Now if you don't have all the shapes I do, it's because you haven't uploaded them into Photoshop yet. So you need to click this little gear icon, and then you're going to come down to all and click that. Then you're going to hit OK, and that's going to upload all of those different shapes into your Photoshop. Now I already have all these, so I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel. And the shape that we want is going to be this ring down here. Alright, so we want this ring right there. So let's go ahead and click within our document. That way we can create the exact size that we want. And we want our ring to be a little bit smaller than our circle. So we're going to put it at 270 pixels by 270 pixels. Now if we don't like this, we can always change this. So let's go ahead and hit OK. And then using our grab and move tool, let's just make sure that's centered. Alright, so now we have our ring. It's really hard to see because it has the same exact gradient as our circle, but that's fine. We actually want that so that when we cut it out of our shape, it keeps that gradient. So if we come down to our bottom circle, you can barely see our ring going around it. Now, next what we want to do is we want to cut that shape out of this circle. So we're going to select both these layers, and then we're going to come up to layer, and then come down to combine shapes. Then we want to come down to subtract from shape. And now that cuts that out of our circle. Next, what we want to do is we want to add an effect to our shape. So we're going to come over to our layers panel, and then we're going to come down to this FX icon, and we're going to click it. And then what we want to do is we want to give it a bevel or embossed edge. So we're going to click that. Now we have a bunch of options we can choose from. So we can change the depth, and you can slide that up and down, and you'll see how that kind of affects the bevel on our image. So we're going to put that at about 750%. Then we can change if we want the lighting to be coming up or down. So right now we have the highlight at the top and the shadow at the bottom, but if we switch it to down, it changes that. But we want to keep it at up. We can also change the size of our bevel, and we want to keep that at about 10 pixels. Type that in. You can also change the softness of your edge, and I'm going to keep that at about 2 pixels. You can also change the direction of your lighting by moving this dial around like so, and that'll change the angle at which the light is coming from. I'm going to keep that at 90 degrees. And then we're not going to worry about our gloss contour. If yours is set to a different one, make sure you have it set to this one that has a straight diagonal line. And then we're going to pick our color. So we want this to be a blue glow, so we're going to come into our blues, and we want it to be pretty light. So we'll hit right there, and we'll hit OK. And so now we have a nice blue highlight to our edge. Now for our shadow, we're going to keep it at black. And other than that, we're good. So let's go ahead and hit OK. And then if we switch to another tool, such as the grab and move tool, that will remove that highlight selection around our shape. So now we can see how it really looks. I think it's looking pretty good. Next, what we want to do is we want to add in a pressed in circle in the center of this circle for our play button. The way we're going to do that is we're going to add a new shape, and we want it to be a circle. So we're going to come over here, select our elliptical tool, and then we're going to click right in the center, and we're going to make it 210 pixels by 210 pixels. And we'll go ahead and hit OK. And then using our grab and move tool, let's make sure we have that centered. And we can leave our gradient within our fill. But what we want to do is we want to add an effect to this layer. So we're going to come down to our effects, and we're going to add another beveled edge. And we're going to leave it on the same settings that we had on our original circle, but we're going to change something. Right up here where we have a check next to use global lighting, we're going to uncheck that. And that gives us more of an inset circle around it. So we're going to go ahead and hit OK. Perfect. So now we have our setup for our play button. Now let's make sure that's centered. It is. Great. All right, that brings us to the end of this lecture. So in this lecture, you laid out all the shapes for your play button. In the next lecture, we're going to go ahead and add in our play button icon as well as a glossy coat over it. Then we're going to add in some glowing effects and prep it for animation. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lecture.